Hello, I'm Mike Lowe, Executive Director of Coventure, and welcome back to another episode of Case Studies, where we do a deep dive around a problem that an entrepreneur is facing. We just finished a 3-pack looking at nonprofits on how they could launch and pivot during COVID-19. Nonprofits have really struggled during this pandemic, and we're grateful that we had some expertise and advice to explore, like, how do nonprofits at different phases get to that next level. And so now we turn our attention to artists, and we're grateful today to have Kimberly, who heads up the Carbondale Creative Arts District, has been an artist herself for decades, and has really taken the creative art district to another level. I mean, we've always been an artistic community, but between Mountain Fair and Green is the New Black, which is this fantastic fashion show, it feels like Carbondale has really become one of the flagship creative districts on the Western Slope, if not the whole state. So, Amy, thank you for being here. And in a moment, love for you to share a little bit about sort of what you've been up to with the Creative Art District, and then to kind of shine a light on what struggling artists could be thinking of during these times. We've also got Joe Van Wyk, who's a graphic artist and photographer, just recently moved here, and looking to kind of relaunch his career, and certainly looking for any advice on how he can do that. And then, of course, we've got Karol, who is our SBDC consultant, who's going to provide a business lens into what does it mean for an artist to take that next step. So thank you so much for joining us today. And Amy, maybe we could start with you. If you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about what you've been up to and about the Creative Art District, and then kind of jump right into the wisdom you've learned over the years for starting artists who are starting out.
Well, thank you, Mike, for having us. I am the Executive Director of Carbondale Arts and the Carbondale Creative District, and I'm pretty lucky because Carbondale Arts has been part of this community for 49 years. So it's really, we've got a lot of longevity behind us and a lot of trial and error. The Creative District was formed in, I think, about 5 years ago. It is a program out of the State Office of Economic Development to really empower communities to look at the creative industries as the strong economic drivers that they are. You know, before that, for many years, it would be like, why are arts important? But now there's proof. The creative industries are the 5th largest industry in Colorado, and one that's seen a lot of growth over the years, especially as this program has grown. There's about 24 creative districts in the state of Colorado right now. Does that make being an artist any easier? No. There's a lot of public perception. Number one, usually when you grow up and you say you want to be an artist, the first thing you hear is why, or be sure that you get another job to help support you. Making money as an artist has never been easy. And when I say artist, it really encompasses a huge swath of industries. I mean, that could be everything from a clothes designer, web designer, studio arts, performance arts. So, you know, healing arts, it really can encompass a lot. And that's one thing we have to keep in mind. But artists play a crucial role in culture, and that role is often undervalued. So we really need to find ways that artists can live balanced, sustainable lives. And so one of the things that I always say is building a sustainable life as an artist isn't simple. So the fact is, many artists and creatives already have the skills they need to reach that sustainable life, but we've often been told it's hard and you've got to do other things. So there's 3 principles that really will help you sustain yourself as an artist. First, your skills as an artist. What kind of artist are you? You know, are you producing 3D work or sculpture or design? Really understanding what it is that you want to get out of being an artist is key to your sustainability, because then that helps you track your whole path. If you are unclear as to what kind of artist you are or want to be or want to pursue, like any other profession, you're going to have a harder time finding that sustainability. The second key part is community. It is crucial that artists are connected to their community, because it's that web that gives you the resources to grow and also helps give you the stability to fall back on. And in this day and age, in the 21st century, artists are sitting at the table in urban development and planning and sustainability and global warming and, you know, a huge wide swath. Their input is extremely important and valued. So community is key. And then your mission. You know, every artist has a mission, just like a nonprofit might have a mission or a business might have a mission. You know, it's a purpose bigger than yourself. It's a generosity. So no one gets into this work for money or status. You know, you are mission driven as an artist, and you need clarity around that to be able to move forward.
So Amy, sorry, Amy, go ahead.
So real quick, just in our 81623 area code, in 2018, which are the last stats I have, artists, writers, and performers brought in 5.4 million in revenues, just in the 81623 area. Architectural services were 1.6 million. I think we'll see a huge change now in this year because of COVID, but you know, it's a big swath of our economy here in this area and in many places throughout the states. So those are our three key things. And once again, as you move forward, it is important to define who you are, and then define what your market is, like any business. So do you want to go with Etsy? Do you want to go fairs? Are you a high-end artist? What is going to be your delivery system? And understanding that will help lay out a path for you. You know, getting good photographs, and Joe will be able to attest to that. Many artists feel like taking pictures of their work with an iPhone will work. And, you know, sometimes it will, but it's crucial. Good photographs of your work, whatever that work would be, is key, because we're such a visual society now, and you as an artist should be extremely visual.
So Amy, before I turn it over to Joe and let him kind of describe sort of his current challenges, what I'm hearing, I think the theme that's really coming out is this idea of relationships, that a lot of the heavy lifting out the gates is really diving in, becoming a part of your community, building relationships, because those relationships will help to not only give you access to customers, but will also kind of create that partnership you need to sort of launch. I'm just wondering if you know, to specifically look at Carbondale and that ecosystem, what are the relationships that Joe should be thinking about as you think about the broader creative community? And then Joe will kind of talk about, I'll introduce you.
So, you know, we're really lucky in this valley because we do have such strong arts organizations, and getting involved with those, you know, open up a whole world besides Carbondale Arts, and we have a gallery, the R2 Gallery. But Art Base has a gallery, and obviously they're going to be growing and expanding. Anderson Ranch and the Red Brick up in Aspen. Very strong places for artists to be connected with. Not only will you meet other artists, but you will have a lot of opportunity brought your way by just connecting with those organizations. And that costs very little.
Nice. So Joe, I know you moved here recently from Austin and had a pretty successful graphic design photography career, and you've still kind of kept a few clients, so you've got a little bit of income coming from there. So you're not you're not just a new artist. It's just that you're an established artist who's moved to a new community and trying to create revenue. So help us understand a little bit of your background, just in a quick snapshot, and then really kind of dive into sort of what you've done so far and where you're stuck.
Well, that sounds great. So I'm Joe Van Wyk. I have owned my own graphic design company for 25 years. The photography, the people photography work that I do, that professionally has been about the last 5 years. So portraiture, street portraits. I found a couple of little income streams, niches for the photography in Austin. I can enlarge on that, but I don't know if they'll translate here. But the graphic design work has paid the bills. I mean, there's not even, I don't even know if there's a fraction that describes how little photography is compared to the whole thing. I mean, just thinking of like top 3 clients right now, you know, one of them's a giant insurance company that I do a monthly newsletter for their political action committee. It's a digital newsletter. It's, you know, there's plenty of budget, lots and lots of money there, and it's been consistent. That's been helpful. And then my very first client, when I went out in business for myself, is still a client. 25 years later, a catalog that I do for a cigar manufacturer in San Antonio. And so all these years I've been doing 2 or 3 catalogs a year for them. So that's been good income. So me being able to put food on the table and raise a child as a single parent and all that, that is due to me, my self-employment, and definitely having some hustle. But like grace of God, I have had these amazing clients that have just been here month in and month out. They're still here. So the stability of the income that I get from the graphic design work is really, really important for me. And the feeling that that's a real viable commercial skill, because there are a couple of other kind of things that need to be added into this mix, so you know me and you consider this for whatever endeavor I take on. And that is, I've got a history of some real severe struggles with mental illness, with depression and anxiety. And over the years, I have made unbelievable strides in addressing that, and have picked up so many tools and skills, and even coined, you know, like this idea of conscious photography, sort of mindful photography, and how that can help people who suffer from mental illness. But I know I'm not speaking alone as an artist with, you know, struggles in this area, but it's so much a part of my life and so much part of my testimony and my whole outlook and experience. Like embedding with people on the streets, homeless people, horrific plights on the street, and doing these street portraits and working with them and encouraging them, that kind of nitty gritty, get your hands dirty kind of, you know, loving on people out on the streets and stuff. That's a big part of my heart. It's the way I want to, it's more than just giving back. So it's part of my DNA. And I've got a little YouTube channel with 1,500 subs. And so my public voice, if I choose to really go public with this and have some kind of a systematic way to help others, then yeah, so we'll talk about that too. But this whole idea of the helping artists who struggle with mental illness, I don't know if that's something that I just need to keep, just on a personal level and a one-on-one thing, or if I need to go, if I decide that I want to go more public with that, because that's how I can reach and help more people. But the presence that I have on YouTube, just to finish this, 1,500 subs, that was hard fought. And they're like photographers and people that are really enthusiasts about photography and portraiture and street photography. So there is that, you know, there's that little community that I could launch off of if I want to change the direction of that channel.
So Joe, maybe if I could frame this into a question, and then again, Amy, take it wherever you want, but it sounds like part of that dilemma you've described is you've got this bread and butter thing, this graphic design, which has been really kind of key and will continue to be key. But like many artists, like you are driven, like your heart is driven to pursue this very specific artistic path. And how do you sort of find that balance? Is that fair? So
Yes.
Amy, maybe you could sort of talk about that dichotomy, because I'm sure that's a common situation for artists, like kind of have your day job, and hopefully your day job is somewhat artistic, but then you've got this passion play that you're looking to kind of generate revenue from. What does that look like? Amy, what are your thoughts on?
Well, you know, many artists, some of the greatest art comes out of that struggle, and it's shared. That struggle is shared by so many people, and as our lives get more complicated, sometimes that gets more complicated. I will say that what Joe has been able to do in his life, and what many artists do, is kind of find this weaving of their creative talents in a way that makes money, and then their artistic higher self is what they do to try to keep themselves balanced. And it's a hard walk. It's a hard walk to do, because you're constantly struggling between the two. But I do want to say that expressive arts right now is just a growing field. And artists are the people that can really address that gap. And there's that need. We're seeing it more in our schools, in grief, in lots of areas, that how to use arts to work through many of the emotions that we're all feeling. And I feel like you probably do that every day, Joe.
Is expressive art something that is used these days, sort of where art therapy was used before?
Exactly.
So this expressive arts is a thing.
Absolutely.
Oh, I've never even heard of that term. That sounds cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think, again, sort of bringing it back to our community, do you think there's those opportunities in the Roaring Fork Valley, art therapy?
There certainly are. Sherry Gaynor is one of the leaders, and she does quite a few workshops. But at Carbondale Arts, we have a scholarship that we give every year, the We Were Cohane Expressive Arts Therapy Scholarship. And last year we gave it to 3 different artists to be able to pursue training in expressive arts, or a project that they feel they want to do with the community in expressive arts. So we encourage it extremely, but there's lots of avenues just in this valley under expressive arts.
You know, I'm kind of curious, Amy. I think about that art therapy and how powerful that it is. And I also think about art education, that art, you know, even as you're trying to figure out how to get your own products out there and hopefully generate revenue from those products, that there's probably other opportunities around education as well. And that inherently is also therapeutic. What's your perspective on that? Is that a good avenue for starting artists to offer classes and workshops? So
I want to clarify that, you know, teaching may not be for every artist, but for those that it is, yes, we are constantly looking for teachers. We have Rosie Bell, the Art Bus. I know the Art Base is always looking for teachers, especially geared towards youth, but there are other, you know, adult classes as well. And it's an awesome opportunity for bringing in some income. Absolutely. But it's not for everyone.
Oh, did we just lose Mike?
I think we might have. We have his.
Hey, Chris, I'm here. Somehow my video just came, but let's keep going. I know, Joe, jump in. And what other questions do you have on next steps? I mean, certainly I want to introduce Chris here shortly, and to get a business perspective. But as far as getting real traction in the next month or two, what are some questions you have for Amy?
Well, I would like, so I've described a couple different national accounts. I also have a university that I'm working with in Texas doing some videos for some of faculty members in their residency program. And so I'm doing a little video editing for them, but it's just one more example of, I'm not even like a pro video guy, but I've done a lot of video, and I just stumbled into this account. But now that I've done this one project for them, I'm on the list, you know? And so there could be more work with that. So I'd love more work, more these national accounts that I don't see face to face. But I just, once again, for my mental health and my sense of community, I think it's so important that I anchor in with and find some good, cool clients here in the Valley. Earlier this year, I found myself surprise divorced right in the middle of COVID in an RV and a truck and a golden doodle moving to Colorado, man.
Yeah.
And with my connection with CRMS, I'm a CRMS grad, I made one little connection after another. And that put me into, and then Mike, and then I got to mentor some students over there, do a little graphic design for a teacher over there. And so I just find that every little thing I do to anchor into the community, it makes me feel less like I'm in abandon mode, you know, and I'm all alone mode. So I do that wherever I can. So what you're describing, I'm just all over. I want to get involved. No other artists. Being here at Coventure has been such a godsend. Paige, and she's going to be helping me with marketing, and Mike's taken an interest in me. And I mean, we're going to do a heck of a show in here, and hopefully a Christmas party in November. And these aren't going to be little images on the wall. I'm going to print huge banners, portraits hanging down, and we're going to have storytelling and stations that go through, and we've got some neat things in store that we're going to present to you guys.
Can I ask you, Joe, what would you say your deep passion as an artist is?
The capturing somebody's spirit and the interaction that I have when I'm doing a portrait shoot or street portrait or whatever, that's where I shine. It's like, I know, you know, the universe gave me some good skills, but that's one of my really outstanding skills. My ability to work with people and jump right in and close proximity with people and that kind of storytelling, that I'm really, really good at that. Now, but the graphic design work, I enjoy doing that. And there's something that's really good and healthy for the methodical stuff, doing projects month in and month out. Oh, there's something familiar, because every photography shoot is just totally new. So I go through that artistic process of anxiety and freaking out and how I'm going to do this. And, you know, it's a lot of emotional and physical and mental effort.
Well, before we jump to Chris, I do want to say the Carbondale Creative District, we do have a listing for businesses and creatives. So it'd be great to get you on there. It's a very visual site. And so, you know, just trying to connect you in all these kind of areas so people know you're out there. A lot of people call us looking for graphic designers. And honestly, there really aren't that many in this valley. You'd think there'd be just too many, but I feel for as big a valley as we have, there's a lot of room there. So
that's great. And I'm proud. I just want to, you know, pat myself on the back. I'm so proud that as a graphic designer that I stumbled onto this publication work. Publishing is really where I want to be. Newsletter publishing, catalogs, print newsletter, but content creation, month in and month out, that kind of work for businesses.
I think that's a good segue to sort of rope Chris into the conversation. Chris, again, who is our in-house consultant for the Small Business Development Council, which offers free consulting around the state. And I think Chris and that network has been a godsend to our community, especially during COVID-19, where a lot of people need help right now and don't have the budget to pay for it. So we're grateful for Chris and his team to do the work. And I think as we sort of, I think a lot of the conversations have been about accessing the network, building the relationships, connecting the dots. And Chris, I would love it if you would maybe shine some light on like, what does it mean to go to market? Like, what does it mean to generate revenue from products? And then Amy, to have you chime in on that as well. Thoughts on that, Chris?
Sure. Yeah. And it's interesting hearing the discussion, or, you know, the perspective that you share, Amy, from, you know, being an artist, because it's so much the same as just being an entrepreneur, you know, and it's really this, you know, the same stuff. And I think, you know, the key difference for me personally, when I hear that is, you know, when you're an artist, you're, and same as an entrepreneur, it's something you have to create. It's just something you're compelled to do. Have an idea and take action on it. And how do you share that with the world? So, you know, and I've had a chance to meet with Joe a few times and heard these ideas. And what I really get from you, Joe, is 3 distinct areas. I mean, and you just outlined them. First thing you shared with me was your publishing, your newsletter, your bread and butter. And we spoke about that a little bit as an opportunity. And, you know, that's always important to figure out, you know, how you're going to support yourself while you pursue your passion project until you can actually make that passion project your, you know, sustainable gig and living. But the other, so there's the newsletter, the graphic design stuff kind of fits in with that. But this mindful photography is what really struck me with you, because like, it fits your whole, that's your passion. That's what I see right there. And at the end, you have a really good eye for it. You know when to, you know, push the button and capture that image. So to me, the biggest thing, and this is the same in any business, is, you know, if you're going to sell a widget and you just want to do a simple thing and sell as many as you can, that's one thing. But if you're out there to make an impact, and this goes back to Amy, your points of your third point, you know, what your mission is. You have a more mission-driven product right here, right? So of these 3 things, graphic design, publishing, newsletter, mindful photography, I think, to me, when it comes to art, like, that's your unique skill that I see. And that's when you speak, that's where I see you light up. And I think this is back to the business side too, is that's really your unique offering. Like, that's not a crowded field. That's something that's, it connects back to art therapy. Like, you know, that's a concept that has been around for a long time, but the mindful photography, I first heard of that. I had to go look it up. I've never heard of that, you know, and sure, there are some people out there, which is great actually, because it validates the concept. But it's not like this huge thing that's been out there for a long time. There's room to grow there. And I think you have unique talent at it. So, but combine that with your other skills. This looks to me like a full package, really. I mean, you've got, you can bring that to your newsletter publication, and you can use your graphic design skills to, you know, put your work together in a compelling way. You know, this all kind of comes back to Amy's first point, skill. You know, what are your skills? So I see those all go together. It's nice. And it's unique. So to the second point, the community. And again, these are, you know, if you're looking at it from a business point of view, what's your market? You know, what are your demographics? But, you know, who's your community? And as Amy pointed out, I mean, we, not just artists, but entrepreneurs as well, and just everybody, we all got through this stuff, you know, especially these days, and where people are really, we're all being forced to really look at our lives and figure out, you know, where to find the balance, what matters to us. Timing in that sense seems like really spot on too, to bring this, your work out, you know, to the community. So that kind of brings it to the last question, or last, you know, of the 3 points Amy brought up, you know, the mission. So, and this is actually where working with Paige could be really helpful too. She's really good at drilling down and pulling it out of you to boil it down to what is your mission, to where you can communicate that to people. And what is your story? And you know, looking at the overall current trends in expressive arts, Amy, as you said, but that's also the same in business. Like, if you look at all the social media stuff, or it's all about people's personal stories. And that's what really makes the connection these days. Yeah, it seems like you've got you've landed in a great spot here. I think it's, you know, what you're doing is part of your DNA in a sense. It's about your personal experience. It's what you're passionate about. So it seems to me like you've got all the right ingredients to really you know, boil it down, figure out the impactful message, and maybe that's where, you know, you take some you know, these SEO type of experiments where you see which messages that you come up with resonate with people, what they respond to, what they don't. You know, and that's getting into sort of the back end SEO stuff. But as long, if you're doing it with content that matters to you, well, all of a sudden that SEO stuff's probably going to get a lot more interesting.
So Chris and Amy, maybe as we think about that, I like that the way you frame that, you know, once you've established that these are the right ingredients, and Joe, I think it's nice to get outside confirmation, like, hey, that does resonate. And that now you're at this place that, okay, I've got the right ingredients. Now I need to go make money from these ingredients. I want to maybe focus the last part of this conversation around that. And both Amy and Chris, if you could weigh in on, like, how do you find your customer? Like, as an artist, how do you figure out who your customer is? Do you go after the rich people in Aspen just because it's Aspen and assume that that's where your customer is? Or is it a longer, more thoughtful, strategic play to figure out who's out there, who's going to buy your work?
Could I interject this, Amy, real quick? Because I want you to have this information when you're thinking about that question. One photography niche that was really taking off for me in Austin and San Antonio is event photography. I ended up connecting with a couple of education-related nonprofits. As you can imagine, Austin has just thousands of nonprofits headquartered there. I'm sure Denver does too, whatever, all the capitals do. And so I'd go to their convention and shoot that convention. And it was very much a street shooting, kind of candid, and they loved me. They just loved the work that I did and said it was totally different than anybody they had ever seen, etc. So literally my last convention that I shot was the very week before they shut, it was at the convention center in Houston, the week before they shut it down completely. So I'm thinking here, as things are starting to open up, don't they have a lot of corporate events and swishy things up in Aspen that maybe I could do the equivalent at?
So you know, you have moved here at a very strange time, and especially for being in events, and even as things open up, I think we're looking at a very different model for quite a while. But I want to say that, you know, the mindful photography aspect, a huge segment of this valley is really into the healing arts, and we consider that a creative industry. And places like True Nature, Davina Kent, you know, even Jillian up in Aspen with Aspen Business Connect. You know, these are people that will reach you to a wider community, and having those conversations with those people, I think there's many people that could connect to that idea of mindful photography and want you to, you know, come, especially in portraiture, especially in this time that we're living in, where there is going to be more individual types of experiences as opposed to the huge collective experience. So I think you're really perfectly situated to kind of get that concept out with a lot of these organizations and show some examples. And you know, you could see a lot of play in there. I believe, you know, the clientels and people really looking in that healing arts segment, and then the combination of arts with that or portraiture, I see a lot of room there. So thinking outside the box and connecting in different ways is a key here.
So Amy, I like the way you frame it, that is, you know, it's hard to find that specific customer, but if you find customers who are in that healing arts category, like that's your potential buyer. But knowing that, you know, this is meant to be informative for all artists, are there any tricks you have that you share with artists looking to find their customer?
Tricks. everything it's really such an individual thing. But I do usually say, use the resources that are around. So many people don't use the resources that are around. Just in our state, the Office of Economic Development, the SBA, all these things, there's lots of, there's individual grants for artists, there's just support, there's resources, Americans for the Arts, on a larger scale, Springboard for the Arts. So there's a lot of things already in place that you can tap into pretty easily. And many artists just don't think that that is a resource for some reason. So besides our local resources, it's key to look at what's around and tap in. It's also key to as you define who your audience is, look at ways to put yourself in situations where you might find like-minded people and have those conversations and connect. And we're lucky here because it's easy to do here. It's harder in a city. But we kind of have the urban going in this valley because from Aspen to Glenwood, it's a lot of resources, and yet you still can get that personal one-on-one or reach out and meet people. So I just say it's key to really use your resources that are right available, and they can be found on, our webpage has a lot of resources, especially during the COVID times, but also Office of Economic Development, Colorado Creative Industry, Springboard for the Arts, urge people to really look and see what's available.
So as we kind of wrap up this conversation and think about takeaways, certainly I think hearing loud and clear, and correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, that the networking, the building of community, the relationships are kind of still front and center. And certainly as far as figuring out your customer, that hopefully it feels like, you kind of at least have a sense that this healing arts community is a great place to start to think about your customers and getting your work in front of them. And certainly some of the things Chris shared and reiterated that Amy shared around mission, and which ultimately sounds like a branding exercise. And the more I think about it, I think, artists, maybe even more than the traditional entrepreneur, like branding is everything. Like you have to become an influencer. Maybe as we kind of wrap up this conversation, Chris and Amy, maybe you could kind of shed light on what does that mean to where it's not just about the work, but it's about the artists and getting you out there as your own brand, as an influencer. What does that look like?
Chris, do you have some insight on that? I mean, I could do,
Sure.
but I've been talking.
Yeah, I'm really struck by the similarities, Mike, as you pointed out again, between the skill, community, mission. These are the artists is really facing the same thing as the entrepreneur and vice versa. So and I think in the changing times that we're in, it's about designing a life we want to live in at this point, so if we're compelled to be an artist or an entrepreneur or start a business or work with people, whatever that is. But I think, finding the market for the art, that, or a way to pay for it, whether it's grant funding, and Amy, I think you probably have a better handle on all these different types of artist grants out there, but I know there's just a ton of different programs out there that are just waiting to be applied to, and that's kind of mundane work, but it's necessary in terms of, just even researching what is out there to begin with, and then narrowing it in on which ones you want to apply to, and then actually applying and following up. And that's like any business, it's out there, it's going out prospecting, and 9 out of 10 might not come through, but that 10th one could be the one.
Yeah. And I want to say, as far as like freer resources, I mean, obviously Instagram is the artist's best friend these days and highly used by just about every successful artist. And Joe, you already have a YouTube channel, right? So, YouTube, a lot of social media and being able to tell your story and get your story out in different ways it is key too. A lot of people have become very successful through those avenues as well. So, I think keeping a real vibrant place in social media is an artist's good friend as well.
I needed to hear that. I needed to hear that.
Joe, do you have any final questions as we wrap up this case study? And if you don't, I have one more question I've been thinking of.
All right, hit me.
Well, you know, I'm always fascinated. The artists that I know, it always feels like there was a game-changing moment, that they were toiling away in obscurity. And for a lot of these famous artists, it happened after they died, which is always that unfortunate story. They became famous after their death. But the idea that, you know, there's, at some point, there will be this game-changing event where all of a sudden you're known and your art becomes, it just takes that next step. And Amy, I don't know if you have any insight on, is there some common threads around that, like what these artists do who, yes, they're toiling away, but at some point there is this event that happens. Is there a way to sort of help position yourself for such an event?
Well, you know, I think first off, maybe we have to take that out of the picture, because success means different things to different people. And, you know, especially for artists, if you're having your soul fulfilled and you are being able to make a living and live a life that has meaning to you, then you've made it, right? To what level of success is different to everyone. So I just want to say that I don't think there's any cookie cutter situation, and often things like fame can really destroy an artist. So I think it's really important to be able to recognize that the life you are living is fulfilling. So if that life is fulfilling to you and you are being able to do what you do, then you and live in some sustainable way, then you actually have reached that key piece. As far as fame goes, I think that's a whole different ballgame, or reaching an upper place in the economic pattern of life. I don't think there's one key thing. A lot depends on, you know, that you just keep putting it out there. You have a product people really like, someone sees it, some famous person sees it, next thing everybody wants your art. You just never know. But I think it's really important as an artist to know when you have satisfaction and that you're getting to live an artist's life. And that to me is success.
You know, I just, as a takeaway, two huge things. One from this conversation and one from the first conversation I had with Mike. I mean, Mike, it was such a throwaway thing for him, scribbling up on the board and doing a little illustration of a hybrid career. I mean, but I saw it and thought of a name, there's a name for this. Oh, I'm not the only, and it sort of validated what I'm doing and gave me permission to, heck yeah, keep on pursuing these different, you know, because they're all part of they're all important components, from the income part to the artist, the outlet kind of part. So this conversation, it's been you and enlarging my idea of an artist, because every time y'all have said artist, I've cringed, because I don't think of myself as an artist, because I'm a commercial guy. You know, I'm a commercial artist type, and that's not an artist. And it's just like Mike kind of got me over that shame of having multiple interests and constantly coming up with, it's like, oh my gosh, that's Joe. That's awesome. That's me. That's what I bring to the table. And in this sense, opening my mind to the broader definition of what the arts mean and who my audience would be. Yeah.
So could I just give you one suggestion?
Sure.
You should really check out Artists U and Minette. It's amazing. He is so inspiring. We did something with Coventure last year. We brought him in, but you can download his book. And really what he says is that people have always been made to feel like being an artist is a secondary or third thing, you know, and if you look through history and civilization, it was the artists in the beginning, the philosophers, they were supported by the communities. They were key figures. And he says, thank you for being an artist. You are an artist. And if you are an artist, it is your God-given right to this society to practice your art and bring that art to the community. So you should read them. It's very inspiring.
Well, Amy, that was a perfect note to end on.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. I want to thank Joe and Amy and Chris for joining us today on this issue of Case Study. Again, I'm Mike Lowe, Executive Director of Coventure, and as we work with entrepreneurs and artists to try to figure out a way forward, we're just grateful to the larger network of experts and people in this great community who are all trying to lean in and help each other out. So thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll hope to do a few more of these shows dedicated to the artistic community. And signing off for now, and we'll see you next time.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody. Thank
Take
you.
care. Thanks.